Hi, this is Lisa
and Jason
from the Designated Quizzers podcast, and you're listening to Pop Goes Your World.
If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes. And while you're there, please leave us a rating and review.
And now it's time for our featured presentation.
I'm Chris McBrien, and the pop culture from Generation X is everything to me.
And I'm Derek Myers, and I'm here to educate Chris on the great pop culture of today's generation.
Episode 212, An Officer and a Gentleman movie review. Chris McBrien along with Derek Myers, and this is Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations. Now, last time out, we held a pop culture fantasy draft for the year 1982, and Derek and I each drafted a team of 3 movies, 3 TV shows, 3 songs, and a personal pick, all from the year 1982. And then we sent our lists to our esteemed panel of judges, and the judges have rendered a verdict. And then we're going to find out which list was considered the winner, and then we're going to move on to review a movie from 1982. It was my selection, so I went with An Officer and a Gentleman. But before we get to all of that this week, what is new in the world of pop culture for you, Derek?
Hey, Chris. Well, I think I need to start on a sad note and let you know, if you are not already aware of it, that Taylor Hawkins, the drummer for the Foo Fighters, died this year at 50.
Yes.
Now, Chris,
heard that.
You're older than 50, and I'm pretty close to that myself. So when you hear somebody dies at 50, and it's not in a horrific plane crash or because they, overdosed on drugs, it's always a little bit scary and hits a little close to home. So far, they're saying it seems to be natural causes with Taylor Hawkins. It doesn't seem like it was any sort of badness going on that led to this. And, as a huge fan of Foo Fighters music and of Taylor Hawkins' ability, he played with Alanis Morissette for a long time as well. He was a fantastic musician, and we will certainly, we will remember him fondly. And, it's like they say, it's often imitated, never duplicated. He's definitely one of those people will try to aspire to be everything that he was, and he will be sadly missed. And obviously, with the passing of a member of the band, the Foo Fighters have canceled all the upcoming summer dates in their upcoming tour, which is totally understandable. I personally had tickets to see them when they were coming through Toronto, and was obviously looking forward to the show, which is not going to happen. But so unfortunately, sad way to start our show. R.I.P. Taylor Hawkins, drummer with Foo Fighters, died at 50 earlier this week. On to a couple of more positive things, though. I finished watching, or rather it finished airing, one of the recent Star Trek spinoffs shows. Star Trek Discovery just finished its 4th season last week. Chris, are you a fan of Star Trek, the Star Trek franchise, Next Gen, any of that stuff?
Well, as you know, I've mentioned in the past, when I was a kid back in the 70s, Star Trek, the original, of course, was on in syndication, and I was a huge fan. Every day after school, I would race home and then play road hockey with my friends, because I'm Canadian, and then we would watch Star Trek from 5 to 6, every single day. But, all these new incarnations of the show and stuff, like I never watched The Next Generation or Deep Space Nine, and this one, Discovery, never even heard of it until just now. Go figure.
Well, I've been enjoying it. I felt that the show has gotten better and better with each season, as a lot of these shows tend to do. The first season or the first 2 seasons, a lot of them are still struggling to find their footing. The cast and of the show are still trying to figure out what the characters are all about. The writers are still trying to figure out what the characters are all about. But Star Trek Discovery definitely started off strong, and I feel got stronger and stronger. One of the things that a lot of TV shows do now, especially shows on cable and premium cable, not that this one's on premium cable, but premium cable shows, is rather than do like the old Star Trek, where each episode was just a self-contained, here's something, away team goes to the planet, you meet some aliens, everyone shoots them up, and you'll learn a lesson at the end kind of thing. They've stopped doing that with these recent incarnations of Star Trek. So with Star Trek Discovery, they've made it more of a longer story. So if there's 10 episodes in the season, it's a story that takes 10 episodes to tell. It's episodic in the sense that you can't just jump in episode 6 and then go back to episode 3 and then move ahead to episode 8. You're going to be lost. It's not like the old Next Gen where you could literally just turn on any episode and you don't really need to know anything about it. Every show was self-contained. Some people like it better that way. I guess obviously more people do because that's how a lot of television works these days. I personally love it. I think it really gives you a chance to really, come up with a really creative story. It's like getting a 9-hour movie if it's a 9-episode run. And the Star Trek Discovery Season 4 I felt was really strong. And it had a great story. It introduced some interesting characters, some interesting challenges. And at the end of it, so my wife and I watched it together, and she turned to me and she said, "Oh, I guess that's the end of the show. Did they get canceled, or are they not getting renewed? Did the actors decide to leave the show?" And I was like, "Well, I don't think so, but you're right." It felt very definitive. Like this, not only was it the end of the season-long arc, but it was a very satisfying, what we thought was the end to the series. And then, an hour later, we're on the internet. We're like, well, no, they're coming back for another season. So I just thought it was a weird choice from the creators to sort of put this sort of stamp on the end of the season that really made it feel final. And I'm wondering if maybe they didn't know they were going to get picked up and they were sort of told, hey, guys, you better wrap this up just in case. But anyway, Star Trek Discovery Season 4. If you're watching Star Trek, you're a fan of Star Trek. If you've started watching Discovery, maybe you haven't gone around to Season 4 yet. It was great. By contrast, the new Star Trek spinoff, Star Trek Picard, Season 2 just started. It's 2 or 3 episodes in, and it is disappointingly bad. I like the first season enough to want to come back, but I really think they're going in the wrong direction with this second season, which is quite disappointing. So good Star Trek, not so good Star Trek. So anyway, those are my picks for the week. What about you, Chris? Did you do any pop culture stuff this week?
Well, I mentioned last episode, me and the family went down to Florida. It was like a working vacation. I worked the whole week, but my wife and kids, they visited with their grandma. She's down there, and they hung out on the beach and, all that Florida kind of stuff. And of course, as I mentioned last week, I got to meet Yance Eaton for the first time. Him and his wife, they're just amazing human beings. They're just great. He's one of my best friends in the whole wide world, and we'd never met in person, so it was pretty cool. But one thing that we did do, we took a day and we went to Disney. Now, Derek, I never get this right. Is it Disneyland or Disney World that's in Florida? I always get those mixed up. I don't know.
If it's not Canada's Wonderland here in Toronto, I have no idea.
I don't know. So whichever one it was, I think it's Disney World. Anyway, we went there and we got one of the first things we wanted to do. We went to the one park. It was Hollywood Studios because it's got all the Star Wars stuff. So we get there and you can book lightning lanes. It's really complicated, right? But the one that you got to wait in line for is that new one. It's called Rise of the Resistance. So we went and we got in line for that one first, and then we waited in line for it and then booked our lightning lanes for the other rides. We waited 3 hours. 3 hours in line for this ride. And so that was something. That was our whole morning, was waiting in line. But anyway, so we get in there, and the way it works is you get into this room, and they put maybe 20 people together, and they put you all in this kind of room, and you're in this spaceship, and then there's a screen in front of you, and there's Admiral Akbar is there, and then Poe Dameron comes on the screen, and all this stuff goes on. And then all of a sudden you realize you're flying, and then you get captured by the Empire, the bad guys. They get you, and then they pull you in a tractor beam, and you go in, and all of a sudden the door opens up, and this guy walks in, and he's in character, and he's all dressed up. He's an Imperial Guard, and then he escorts you into the next room, and as you go into the room, it's all stormtroopers standing there. It was pretty cool. But the one thing that got me was the guy that came in, and I don't want to be one to criticize, but I mean, we all really like Star Wars, and so we're all excited. And the guy comes in, and I felt like he had no energy. He was like, okay, everybody, follow me. We're going into this next room. And I was thinking, Derek, when we first met, I worked at Ontario Place, and it was in Toronto. Definitely not Disney World, but it was kind of a theme park-ish kind of thing. And I was a costume character, and I did children's theater and stuff. Every single person that I met, it didn't matter if I did it 1,000,000 times in a day. I gave it my all. I put everything out there, to make sure they had the best time. And I was really kind of surprised by the person that was the actor that was playing this part, because like I mean, if it was me, I would have walked in there and I would have been like, okay, you rebel scum, come with me. You're under control of the Empire now. And then bring them out, and then you see all these stormtroopers, just blows you away. And I know you got to do it like 200 times a day, but I don't know. I just felt like just bring it. So I don't know. I was a little bit disappointed in the whole thing. But the other thing too was when you get out there and all the stormtroopers, I said to my wife, I said, these aren't like real stormtroopers. They're like, what's the new one? The First Order. That's the bad guys now.
Yeah.
Right? In Star Wars. So I'm like, oh, they're all like these First Order stormtroopers. And my wife's like, what are you talking about? And so then later on, when we got out of the park, and I showed her a picture of like the original stormtroopers and then the First Order ones, and she's like, oh yeah, they do look different. Those old ones are way cooler. I'm like, yes, I know. The new ones kind of look like the back end of a Kia minivan or something. I don't know. So overall, it was a good day. We enjoyed ourselves at Disney, but I was a little bit disappointed, like I say, in the actors there. I'm kind of nitpicking. Or am I?
Well, a little bit. I mean, you are a dad, and that seems to be your lot in life, is to just criticize others.
Well, speaking of me being a dad, I got this.
Here's your dad joke of the week.
Derek, I figured since we're reviewing An Officer and a Gentleman this episode, that I'd do a Navy dad joke for you. Okay? All right. So why don't pirates join the Navy?
I don't know.
They prefer the Army.
You will be dishonorably discharged for telling that joke again.
But you know me, Derek. I'm the champion of Gen X pop culture.
Simpsons did it. Yeah. Simpsons did it. Yeah.
Man, that Beyonce sure is hot.
I'm already not comfortable where this is going, but okay.
You've got mail, M-A-L-E.
There we go.
Very good. Okay.
Jeez.
Figure that one out on your own.
You may have some explaining about your internet history.
No kidding. We did it in Canada first.
I overlooked the obvious answer there.
All right. Half of you men run over to the town square, and the others will run with mucus. That drop's making me laugh. Sorry. Okay, so before we get to our movie, we have a little bit of business to get to this week, Derek. So as you know, last week we held another round of our pop culture fantasy draft, combining my two loves in this world, fantasy sports and pop culture. And we went with the year 1982. So Derek, you and I each had to draft a team of 3 movies, 3 TV shows, 3 songs, and a personal pick. And our list, do you want me to just go over our list briefly?
Sure.
So my 3 movies were E.T., Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and An Officer and a Gentleman. And your 3 movies were Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Tootsie, and 48 Hours. My TV shows were Knight Rider, Newhart, and Silver Spoons, whereas you went with TV shows Cheers, Family Ties, and TJ Hooker. And then for songs, I went with Thriller, Michael Jackson, of course. And then I also had Eye of the Tiger from Survivor and White Wedding by Billy Idol. And you had Hungry Like the Wolf, Duran Duran, good pick. And then you also had 1999 by Prince and Beat It by Michael Jackson. And my personal pick was Porky's, the movie, and your personal pick was Zapped. Okay? So our lists were pretty solid, and then, like I say, we sent off our list to our esteemed panel of judges, and they reviewed the list, and they each cast a ballot, and on the list that they felt best represented 1982, and therefore won the draft. And we got to always remember, whoever wins the draft gets the coveted trophy, which is the Funko Fonzie. So Derek, are you ready now for our producer Sloth to unveil the winner?
Yes, I am.
All right, here we go.
The winner is
Chris. Woo! Oh, I got the Funko Fonzie. It was a 6-3 vote. Derek, you did very well.
Well, one of the things that I realized after the fact is you always say you got to play to the judges. You got to play to the judges. So 2 of my picks I picked specifically because I knew they would play to one of the judges. And so after a few days had passed, I reached out and said, like, hey, did you have a chance to vote? And he was like, yeah, I sent him my results. I'm like, which list did you go with? And he went with yours. And I was like, really? I said, well, why did you, I said, I picked these things on my list that I figured would appeal to you. And he's like, oh, I like those a lot. But he goes, I just couldn't vote for a list that had Duran Duran on it. I'm like, really? Like, come on.
This is the danger we take when you pander to one judge, So,
but again, even if I had swung that one judge, I still would have been down a vote. So if I had only lost by the one, I would have been even more disappointed. So.
Yeah, no, not so much. So since we did 1982 with our draft, it was over to me to get the ball rolling with our movie reviews, because after we do our drafts, we each need to pick a movie from that year for us to go back and watch. Your pick is next week, Derek. We're going to find out which movie you're going to pick at the end of this week's episode. But first, it was my choice, and I went with one of my 3 movie picks in the draft, and that's An Officer and a Gentleman. The movie was directed by Taylor Hackford, stars Richard Gere, Debra Winger, and Louis Gossett Jr. Had a budget of $6 million. It made $129 million at the domestic U.S. box office. That put it in the top 5 grossing movies that were released that year. It was nominated for 6 Oscars. It won 2 of them for Best Supporting Actor and Best Song. Now, Derek, coming into this, you had never seen this movie. Isn't that right?
That's correct. I never saw it until this week.
Nice. So why don't you get things going on this, and maybe just give us your initial take on the movie, just, considering that you were coming in fresh on this one. So take it away. Give us a synopsis of how you liked it or what you thought of it.
Sure. So all I knew about the movie was it starred Richard Gere and Lou Gossett Jr. Mm-hmm. It was something to do with the military, and it was called An Officer and Gentleman. That's all I knew. So I always assumed that the officer and the gentleman that were referenced in the titles were Richard Gere and Lou Gossett Jr.
Oh, two different people.
Talking about 2 people, right? Mm. One guy's an officer, and one guy's a gentleman. I'm like, okay. I just always assumed that's what it was because I didn't know anything about the movie. And I'm watching it. I'm going, well, which one's supposed to be the gentleman? Because he's not an officer because he's in training. And I'm like, is the drill sergeant an officer? I'm like, I guess. I don't know enough about the military. And I was like, so that in the back of my mind was not like I was trying to reconcile that for the first half an hour of the movie. And then it sort of dawned on me. I was like, I wonder if it's just supposed to be like the one guy is both of those things. Because I'm like, he certainly doesn't seem like a gentleman and he's not an officer yet. So I'm like, maybe that's sort of where this movie's leading to, is by the end of this movie, he will be both an officer and a gentleman.
Right.
And I thought, okay. And I mean, turns out apparently that's the point. And I don't know, I guess, everybody but me knew that, but I don't think that would have made me want to watch the movie any earlier than today.
Right.
So anyway, it reminded me of like St. Elmo's Fire, where I'm like, well, where the hell's the fire? Like,
right.
When you don't understand what they're getting at with the title, maybe I'm just dense. I don't know. But
the title came from an old saying from the military that was like, this is a conduct unbecoming an officer and a gentleman. So
see, I didn't know that context, and so whatever it is what it is. So anyway, sat down to watch the movie and couldn't wait for it to finish. I thought this movie was terrible.
Oh God, this is going to be an interesting episode.
didn't keep me interested. I thought his character was, I don't want to say despicable. That might be a little bit too harsh, but looking at it with today's lens as well, so much of this movie just made me feel uncomfortable watching it. Just the way that the people in power treated those who had none, especially, in the military. And that's common with a lot of military movies.
It's basic training, bud.
True. But I mean, again, I could be totally wrong, but I was under the impression that like, that kind of treatment is more frowned upon now than it was back then. And I know we always say, like, you've got to understand, it's got to be in the context of the time in which it was made. Not that excuses anything that happens in these movies, but, I'm always thinking of that. But you really, I didn't watch it in 1982. I watched it in 2022. So I'm looking at it with the 2022 goggles and trying to remember, well, what would this have been like in the time? I also found that we'll call it the moral of the movie, or maybe not the moral is the wrong term, but the way the movie ended, where it was like, oh, well, he's going to sweep her off her feet and take her away from all this and give her a better life. And it's like, the message is almost like, well, without the help of this strapping young gentleman, this woman is going to live a crappy life. And I just thought that wasn't really a very strong and positive message. But again, I guess in 1982, it's looked at in a different way, so that didn't sit well with me either. And honestly, I was bored. I thought it was long. I thought it was boring. I thought so many scenes were completely unnecessary. I thought it was extremely predictable. I read online, they were like, this is one of the top 50 most romantic movies ever. I'm like, really? Really? Like, I didn't really feel the romance of this really at all. I mean, maybe the end scene where, again, he comes in and they're like, oh, he came back for me. It's like, I don't know. I just didn't like it all.
Well, we're going to spend the next little while breaking this thing down. But the only thing I can say to you is, man, now I had not seen this movie in 30 years. It's been a long time since I saw it. So, you know, it was interesting for me to watch it. You are absolutely 100% wrong. You're wrong on so many levels. And I'm going to hopefully get into some of it with you tonight. This movie is unbelievable. Like, it was just phenomenal.
It was unbelievably bad.
No.
The only thing that I liked about this movie was the theme song. And again, that's because I've been hearing it for for 40 years. Mm-hmm. So that to me was like the only shining point of this movie was the theme song. And I mean, it's kind of a mellow, sappy theme song, but it is what it is. And I knew it. And I'm like, oh, hey, the theme song. Yeah,
I mean, the theme song is pretty pervasive throughout the film too. Like, there's instrumentals, you know, parts of it. But I don't even think that it should have won Best Oscar that year for Best Song. I thought the song from Tootsie was better, but that's just me. Okay, so let's start this movie by talking a bit about the cast. So we'll start obviously with Richard Gere. I don't know what it is with movies opening up with Richard Gere waking up and like walking to look out a window that involves male nudity. Like, it was like we saw this with American Gigolo, and then again here. Now, in American Gigolo, it was Richard Gere that was nude, and here it's Robert Loggia. Stark departure from his piano scene with Tom Hanks in Big, that's for sure. But the thing about Richard Gere for me is that he wasn't just a pretty boy. Like, I feel that he was a really good actor. And that is something that he fought against his whole career. I don't think people took him very seriously as an actor because of his good looks. I had the same problem when I was an actor, Derek, by the way. So I can totally relate. That.
You know. Yeah, sure.
But I don't know, like, what are your thoughts on Richard Gere just in general? I mean, you didn't like this movie, but I mean, what do you think of him as an actor?
He's decent. I mean, I don't dislike him, but I, at the same time, don't really, you know, go out of my way to watch his stuff. I was looking at his IMDb page and I was actually surprised at how many of his movies I'd actually seen. But mostly the stuff I saw that he was in was basically from the mid 80s to the late 90s. Like, I think this is the earliest of his works I've seen. I haven't seen American Gigolo. I mean, Pretty Woman, of course. Everyone remembers him from Pretty Woman.
Sure.
And then he did Primal Fear in the mid-90s.
Chicago in like 2003.
Chicago, yeah. Like, he's been in a lot of movies that have had great reviews and have won performance awards and movie awards. You know, like Chicago obviously won Best Picture, and Catherine Zeta-Jones won an Oscar for it. He was in Primal Fear. Edward Norton was nominated. Did he actually win for that? I think Edward Norton might have won for that one. So, like, he's definitely been in some projects that have had some high praise. And then, I mean, obviously Pretty Woman made a ton of money and was super, super popular. And if he wasn't already super famous, he became super famous with a whole new generation of moviegoers. But for me, I'm sort of a take him or leave him kind of guy. I don't dislike him, but at the same time, he wouldn't make my top 20 list of favorite male performers.
Okay, fine, fair enough.
But I do think he's talented. I like, don't get me wrong. It's not that, I think he's a terrible actor. I just, not my cup of tea.
So Debra Winger, I want to talk about, because I think people think of her making her debut in Urban Cowboy with John Travolta, but she actually got her start like 2 years before that in a movie called Thank God It's Friday. And I remember that movie very well. So I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but when I was 9 years old, Eric, my family moved to Venezuela for a year. My dad's job took all of us there. And when we were there was only Spanish language TV. This is before the days of Netflix. I mean, it was before the days of cable, actually, back then, for crying out loud. But so we had like a handful of VHS tapes of movies that we would just watch over and over and over again. And Thank God It's Friday was one of them. It was this movie about like this one night at a disco club and like everything that happens there. And Debra Winger was this teenage girl in the movie, and she tries to sneak into the disco club. Her and her friend was Terry Nunn. She went on to be the lead singer for the 80s group Berlin. Remember Take My Breath Away? Remember that song? Yeah. She was also on the short list to play Princess Leia. Terry Nunn was. Until Carrie Fisher, came in there and blew them away. But anyway, so Debra Winger. So she's always had this reputation of being one of the hardest people to work with, like in Hollywood history. And then she basically left Hollywood in the 90s. And let me tell you, her and Richard Gere, they did not get along well when they were making this movie.
Yeah, I was reading that in the trivia.
Probably fair to say that when they were shooting this film, they absolutely hated each other. But the thing is, you cannot deny the chemistry that goes on between them. I personally think this might be the strongest on-screen chemistry that I have ever seen in a Hollywood movie in my entire life. You might not have liked the movie. What did you think of the chemistry between the two leads?
I don't know. I was so disinterested. It just didn't make any. It didn't give me anything. I was like, whatever. Here's two beautiful people making out. Can we move on with this? Are we almost over? Like, let's get on with this.
God, Derek, you have no. The way they look at each other. The scene when they first meet face to face at that dance, when David Keith makes the first move to approach the girls, and Debra Winger. If you go back and watch it, like. I know you won't go back and watch it.
I won't. I'm telling you right now.
If you see that scene, she basically wills him toward Lynette because of her attraction to Richard Gere is just so palpable. And then after there's a scene, and you're mentioning like he's a jerk and stuff like that. But there's that scene when he tries to like push her away, right, and make her leave the hotel room, and he's like, "Get out of here, get out of here," and then she stays. And then they have this like graphic sex scene together. And then in the morning.
Well, hold on.
Yep.
She stays, but he goes after her and sort of like she's trying to get out the door, and he puts his arm on it. And it's like, I know this is being played in a certain way, but from a certain point of view, it's like, hey, if she's trying to leave, let her leave. I mean, I know that wasn't the intent of this scene. Mm-hmm. But for a second when you see it, because it's a similar thing in Blade Runner where it's like, oh, it's so romantic where he gets it on with Rachel. It's like, well, yeah, but does it? And so, yeah, it didn't. Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
No, I mean, let's just kind of shelve that and we'll come back to it because there's reasons why. Like, it's not him being a jerk because he's a jerk toward women. And it's not 1982 anymore. So back then you could be like mean toward women. And now that's not what was going on in that scene.
No, and I understand that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. But like I say, so they have this like sex scene together. And then in the morning he wakes up and for the first time in his life, there's a woman who's actually there with him, for him. And they just embrace. And the chemistry for me, it's just off the charts. And then the scene when Richard Gere gets out of bed and he's naked, it's almost like it was in his contract back then, I think. You want Richard Gere in a movie? You know I'm his agent. You want Richard Gere in here? Okay, the script has to have a scene where he gets out of bed naked, but I just think the chemistry between them was like, it's what makes this movie so good. There's a lot of things in this movie that I like. I think the script is great, the performances, the realism, the graphic approach to the subject matter. I feel the themes of things like honor and courage and love and sex and like I say, the chemistry between the leads, it just kind of ties it all together. So I got thinking, and I was trying to think of chemistry between a male and female lead that was stronger than this, and I don't think I can come up with one. I would ask my wife, and she's like, "Oh well, Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga had the best chemistry that she'd ever seen in A Star Is Born, the remake." A few years back. I never saw that one. Did you ever see that one?
Yeah, like 4 or 5 times. It was great.
And their chemistry is quick. I didn't, like I say, but I did see them. They sang together at the Oscars. And I will say, like, that was pretty good. that was something else. So she might have a bit of a point there. I think of like Leo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet in Titanic, but their chemistry was good, but it wasn't amazing like it was in this movie. I also liked Jimmy Stewart and Donna Reed in It's a Wonderful Life. I thought they had good on-screen chemistry. I fall in love with Donna Reed over and over again every Christmas Eve. Oh man, she was something else. But the supporting cast, I feel, in addition to the leads, I feel that the supporting cast was really good in this. So Louis Gossett Jr., My God, as Foley. I mean, he won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for this role. So he won. He was up against Charles Durning from The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, John Lithgow from The World According to Garp. John Lithgow was phenomenal in that movie, by the way. James Mason in The Verdict, and Robert Preston in Victor Victoria. He deserved that Oscar. I mean, he was good. Did you at least like his performance in any way?
Yeah, I mean, he was good. Yeah, he was good. I got no problem with him getting the recognition and the award. I didn't really necessarily care for the character, but again, I can separate the performer from the character. He did a good job and certainly deserving.
After he made this movie, like I say, he wins the Oscar, and then he didn't do much else. He went on to make these like stupid Iron Eagle movies. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you ever saw. I saw the original Iron Eagle.
Yeah, I saw the first one in the theater.
I thought this saw in the theater too. I thought it was dumb at the time, and they made like 4 sequels to that stupid thing. But before this, he was in The Deep. It was based on Peter Benchley's novel, and he was in Jaws 3D too. But I mean, this was the defining role of his career. I mean, damn, he was amazing. Lisa Eilbacher, did you recognize her from Beverly Hills Cop?
I was gonna say she was in Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah. So I thought she was good. I really liked the whole subplot of her trying to get over the wall, and also like her character kind of represented how gender was approached, by males in the military back then. David Caruso, you obviously recognized him.
Yep.
He was a thing there for a while, wasn't he?
Yeah, it really was.
I remember him from First Blood. And then...
Yes, that's right.
This movie, obviously. And then didn't he do like NYPD Blue?
Yeah, he did one season and he's like, I'm too big for this show. I quit. I'm going to have a big movie career.
Yeah, I'm going to
And he went on to do Jade. It's like, really? You're doing like high-end skin flick?
Kiss of Death or something like that. And then...
Yeah.
Okay, going to go back to TV now. And didn't he do CSI, like Miami or one of those?
Yeah, for like 10 seasons or something ridiculous.
David Keith, I want to mention him. I thought he was really good as Sid Worley. I remember him too from there was this Canadian movie. So Derek, I don't know if you remember, I told a story a couple times here on the podcast about this horror movie convention that I went to back in the early 90s. And I got into an argument with this Canadian film director named Ron Oliver. Mm-hmm. And he went on to direct this movie that was shot in Niagara Falls. So I went to see it. And I used to do a lot of acting in that city. I wasn't in the movie, but he hated me. He would never have cast me. But anyway, the movie was called Liar's Edge. And it was really stupid. But David Keith was in it. I always remember him. He played the bad guy. Shannon Tweed was in that movie too. So that should tell you how bad it was. Mm-hmm. Although Kathleen Robertson was in it too. I always loved her as an actress. But anyway, so that's I just gonna go on these tangents. Sorry, but I mean, I thought David Keith was really good in this. I thought he was important to the story. When he asks Lynette to marry him, and she turns him down, and then he goes to the motel and swallows the ring. And then when Gere and Winger find him hanging from the belt in the shower, I think one of the things that I like the most about this movie is how realistic that it treats all the subject matter, So maybe we can talk about that for a bit. So some of the themes in the film I felt were handled very, very well and very realistically. First and foremost is sex. So this movie depicts sex very graphically. Actually, the movie actually had an X rating when it was first screened by the MPAA. So the director had to cut out a few parts from the sex scene between Winger and Gere. And if you think back to the 80s, a lot of movies back then had a lot of gratuitous nudity. That's what they were all about. But this one was graphic, but it wasn't gratuitous. At least I didn't think so. I think it just adds to the realism of the film. I mean, like, any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. I thought that the sex scenes and the nudity that was in there was done in a way that made sense for the story. It didn't feel gratuitous. Although I did read some stuff where Debra Winger did not want to do the nudity, but they basically, again, in 1982, women didn't have as much power, and they said, well, you didn't put a no nudity clause in your thing, so you're doing it. So I'm sure there could have been ways to shoot some of those scenes without doing the nudity, or again, they do that on TV all the time, but it worked. I mean, it worked for what it was, and again, in the context of 1982, I got to think that this was probably somewhat progressive in the sense of showing how, women can make the choice. A single woman can make the choice to like go out and pick up these guys. It's not just, oh, well, I'm going to wait for the man to come along and propose marriage to me kind of thing. Although, as it turns out, obviously the friend was trying to, trap a man. But no, I agree with what you said about the love scenes actually were done in a way that made you get a sense of what the emotion was in the scene, for sure.
Yeah, and speaking of love, like, I think this movie touches base on love in the fact that love is messy. It's not just about boy meets girl, boy and girl fall in love and everything is well, like things are complicated. And especially in this case, like you've got the male lead who has this history of abuse and, this skewed view of like sex thanks to his dad. I mean, the dad introduces him to like Vietnamese prostitutes when he's like 12, so his entire view of sex and women, it's just all messed up from an early age. So I think love is not going to be something that's going to be easy for this character. And he lost his mom by suicide. And even that scene when he's explaining that to Winger, I thought Richard Gere was really good at this. That scene, it's like the first time that he's ever been intimate with a person. And he finally opens up. One of the other themes in this film that I thought was really important is obstacles. So this movie, the whole movie is about obstacles. Like there's the obstacle course, which for me is a metaphor for the whole movie. When they first get to basic training, Foley is like, you got to get past me, and then immediately the next shot is the factory where the girls work. And the local girls, like you said, they have a history of like trying to trap officers, right? And that's another obstacle, and then there's the math class was an obstacle, the belt buckles and all that stuff, and that the childhood that he had, and he had the bad father and the dead mother, and these are all obstacles that are in the way of this character. So for me, it's not just like this shallow movie. It works on so many levels. And the thing is, I feel like it never plays down the realism. Like every scene is just so realistic, whether they're in the trailer or that kind of poor house where Winger lives in. Like the whole thing just feels so gritty and real. I don't know. I thought it was a very realistic depiction of things.
That's definitely fair. Yeah. I don't disagree with it. It can be realistic and not entertaining.
Yeah, I guess. I remember when they first got to that obstacle course, I said to my wife, I'm like, I could totally do that. She just laughed at me.
I thought the same thing. I'm like, oh, that looks like fun. Except, unlike you, I think I actually could. I don't think I could beat the course record by any stretch of the imagination, but
I'm sure I couldn't do it. Like I said, my wife laughs at me. She's like, you couldn't do that. It's like I'm a living joke or something. And then I thought it was important when they first get to the end of the obstacle course. All the other candidates are like staying back and they're cheering on all their classmates, and Gere's just off alone. Right? Again, just kind of plays into other things like honor and duty. I don't know,
that to me was a little on the nose. I found there were some choices in this that were like, it was almost like the people making the movie were like, hey, in case you didn't get it, let's bash you over the head with it. Here's a thing. And I did find there was a few scenes in the movie where it just felt like, okay, yeah, I get it. You don't have to keep piling it on so thick. And that was one where it was like, well, we're going to have him go over. They're like, look, he's an outsider. He's not part of the team. And this is all about, how are you going to lead a team when you can't even work with the team you're here with? Basic, like, yeah, we get it. Thank you.
I liked how the script brings it into the dialogue, because in one scene, you got Sid, his friend, who's talking about how you've got a duty to other people in your life. Your family, your friends, your unborn child, and Richard Gere is all about duty to yourself first, and that's not an easy, clear-cut theme that the movie is exploring. And I think the movie's better as a result of it. It's not just this shallow movie about these two Navy candidates who just meet two girls, they all hook up, whatever. It could have been a lot more simplistic, but instead the movie explores a lot of the complications. And I think it kind of looks at all the different layers and how complex a lot of these things are. Like I say, like sex and love and duty and honor and courage. And it's all a journey that you have to take. It's not always black and white. There's not always answers that just kind of wrap up neatly. I don't know. I think that's what I like about this movie. There's just so much. So the scene where Foley teaches the hand-to-hand combat, and obviously Gere pays attention because they go to the local bar, and he uses those moves on the local that tries to fight him. Did you recognize the song that was playing in the background?
I did, but I don't remember what it was.
It was Tush by ZZ Top.
Yes, that was ZZ Top. Yeah, I remember that.
I was like, oh man, I got to make a note of that and mention that to Derek because we both love ZZ Top.
But hang on, I don't think you got that right. So the song was right, but what you said before, where it was like, oh, during the martial arts training, he was paying attention because you saw him put these moves on. He later in the movie when they're fighting, he even says something like, oh, I see you've had some training or something. I got the impression that he probably learned to fight from his father and from, the upbringing that he had, going from military base to military base. You get the sense that he was always in trouble. That was my impression was, if this isn't a skill that he picked up since he's been in this basic training, this is something that he actually knows how to do. Because the other guy that's with him, his buddy, is like, seems to be just as surprised. Like, oh my God, how did you do that? Like they've been in the same training courses. If he had learned that in basic training, I'm going to keep calling it basic training. I don't know if it's basic officers training. I think if they had learned that as a part of their course, the other guy his reaction would have been different. It either would have been like, oh, hey, I see those courses have been paying off, or he'd be like, yeah, I've had, like, I think that it wouldn't be so much surprise as much as it would be probably more complimentary around the like, oh yeah, you're really getting the hang of that kind of thing. But again, it's not clearly defined, so it could go either way.
Yeah, maybe that's a good point. I think of it more like the flashbacks that we see are more of him like getting beat up. When he was younger, rather than him using it. So, and
I read a thing that said the moves he uses on the guys outside the bar are exactly the same moves that the gang put on him at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, so yeah, maybe that makes some sense. That scene though, when Foley's teaching them the hand-to-hand combat, and remember he picks the guy out of the crowd to come up with him.
David Caruso.
Yeah, it totally reminded me of that scene in Police Academy. Remember where the drill sergeant calls up Hooks? And he's like, remember that? He's like, here is the house. Here is the window. I'm a burglar carrying a stolen stereo. And she's like, this is a stick up. It just reminded me of that whole scene. I don't know why. Remember the Tackleberry?
Yeah.
Here's the house. Here's the window. I'm a burglar. And he's like, drop that stereo before I blow your damn off. I love that scene. We got to do that movie too, by the way. So another theme in this movie is friendship. And at one point, Foley points out that Gere doesn't have any friends. He's only got customers, And when he's a kid, like we mentioned, like his quote unquote friends, these Asian kids, they take him in an alley and they beat him up, right? And, then in this movie, as things go on, his only male friend that he ever has kills himself. He hangs himself in the shower. And, this is why he's all by himself, because, it's why he thinks you have a duty and a responsibility to yourself in this world. And, that's why he's going for the obstacle course record, right? He just wants to go for himself. And that's why I like the scene. And yeah, maybe it's contrived, but when he stops to help Seeger get over the wall, because he's starting to develop friendships, right? He starts to realize how important friendships are. And
but hold on. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's what it was? Because I read it differently. I read it as, if he wants to be an officer and he wants to actually stay in the military and be successful, he needs to demonstrate that he can do these things to his teacher. So I didn't get the sense necessarily that it was, I am a changed person, as much as I understand I need to do these things in order to actually become what I'm trying to become. And I don't think a good leader needs to be your best friend. I think the people, people under a leader need to respect them and know that they can do, that they are an expert in whatever it is they're asking their people to do. And that was more the sense I got. Was it wasn't out of genuine compassion as much as it was, if I'm going to be the leader that I need to be or that they want me to be, I have to demonstrate this empathy, even if I don't necessarily feel it myself, because I certainly didn't get the sense that he felt it himself.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I felt that he did, because I felt that Seeger was his friend.
Yeah, I definitely felt that, Oh no, sorry, Seeger. That was the woman. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm thinking Worley. Worley was.
I'm talking about the scene where Seeger, she couldn't make it over the wall. So he went back and he was like, "You get over that wall. You foot by step by step. You walk up that wall." And he was going for the record. And instead of getting the record, he went back and helped her. So I thought that was pretty cool. The other scene to me that stood out in that regard was when he's with Winger and he says to her, "You're all alone in this world," and she goes, "I bet most people would buy that line when you feed it to them." Mm-hmm. And then he realizes in that moment, finally, there's someone in the world that sees through him. Like she knows him better than anyone else has ever known him. So he experiences intimacy, for the first time. And for me, it just added to all the chemistry and the power of the scene. I thought everything was working in this movie. I thought it was great. And then even the themes of character. I like how he keeps saying over and over, like, I want to fly jets. I want to fly jets. I want to fly jets. And then Foley says to him, he's trying to get him to quit. He's like, "Why do you want to be here?" He says, "I want to fly jets." And Foley's like, "We're not talking about flying. We're talking about character." It was all about character. I don't know. I thought the movie was very realistic. You obviously didn't, but I did.
I just didn't care for it. I didn't find it entertaining. I thought it was slow. I thought it was boring. Again, maybe it's just the fact that it's, this happens sometimes when younger people go back to watch movies from, many years before they were born. It's like you're used to movies today being done a certain way. And when you go back to watch the quote unquote classics, sometimes the classics hold up no matter what. Fast, slow, different kind of shooting style, different perform, whatever. But some of them, it's like they can definitely be recognized as big in their time, but you watch them now and you're like, meh. It's not even that it doesn't hold up. I think it holds up for what it is. It's not the kind of movie I enjoy. So,
and that's fine. But I mean, you have to be able to realize that this movie cuts to the bone. Like it's so realistic in regard to things like nudity and even the locations and the dialogue. At one point, Gere drops the C word when he goes to see Lynette. That suicide scene. Like, I found it very realistic, and I actually found it hard to watch in that scene when he pulls Sid down. Mm-hmm. And then the scene in the factory when her mother stops her from chasing after him. I felt like these actors can flat out act. I felt like they were all really, really on their game here. I mean, and I don't know if it's just their talent alone or the script or the director or whatever it is, but there's some strong scenes in this movie. Oh, by the way, did you recognize the actress that played the mom?
No.
She was from Seinfeld. You used to watch Seinfeld. Well, you're not a huge Seinfeld fan, but she was Susan Ross's mom.
Who's Susan Ross?
You remember George's fiance that died from licking the envelopes?
Okay.
Yeah, and her and her husband hated George because they blamed her for Susan's death. Anyway, so she was in that. So then the scene at the end when Sid dies and Richard Gere goes back to DOR. He's going to go back to drop on request. And he's like,
"Oh, is that what DOR stood for?"
Yes, drop on request is DOR.
Okay. Was that explained in the movie anywhere? And was it flashed on the screen? Yes. I didn't see it.
Yeah,
I saw it written somewhere. Like when the first guy left, when David Caruso left, they wrote DOR over his name, and I'm like,
I think Foley mentioned it. I want to say Foley mentioned it at the beginning of basic training. I want to get your DOR. That's a drop on request.
Okay.
But Gere goes back there to do it, and he's like, I don't need the Navy. He didn't need Debra Winger. He's like, I don't need anything, and it was great because, I mean, at that point, it's like the movie needs like something. It needs a big final confrontation. And then boy, do you get it, I think, when they fight him and Foley. And the thing was, I feel like that scene wouldn't have worked so well if it wasn't for the actors. Like, they just sell the hell out of it. And behind the scenes, so they were both working on their moves. And all their blocking and everything. And I guess Gossett just wasn't getting it. It wasn't working. So they get in to do the scene and it just wasn't working. So Gere got frustrated and actually kicked him in the balls.
Jeez.
So Gossett left. He walked off the scene. Like, he walked off the set. He was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And he left. And so the director was like, okay, we need to get another, like a stand-in. It kind of looks like him to kind of shoot some of these scenes. And that's what they had to do, you know, but the scene works well. Like it just, oh man, it's so good. And then I love how it cuts to the graduation and the camera is like cycling through all the graduates one by one. And then the director waits, like he pulls it back, right? And then finally you see Mayo. Right, so you because at this point you don't know if he's still there, if he's going to be there or not. You don't know. I thought the movie was very well directed, and then I like when the graduates come up one at a time and they give Foley the silver dollar.
Yeah, I had to look up what that meant.
It's a tradition, right? Like
I don't know anything about the U.S. military, especially. I was like, but yeah, when I was reading in the notes, I'm like, oh, that's what that was all about. Okay.
But the thing is that the tradition is you give the silver dollar. And then it's your saluting officer, whichever officer you first saluted, usually your drill sergeant, right? And you give the silver dollar, and then the officer takes it and puts it in his left pocket. But with Mayo, he puts it in his right pocket because it signified that's more important to go in the right pocket. That is like of more significance because he was like a father figure to him, right? And then the final scene, which you mentioned, you know, you thought it was a bit contrived, but I mean, it is one of the most famous closing scenes in movie history.
Yeah, and I think that's partly why it didn't work as well for me because I've seen it parodied and
it was on The Simpsons, I think. The Simpsons did it.
That's all I kept thinking the whole time, where it's like, tell my boss I'm going to the back seat of the car with the woman I love, and I won't be back for 15 minutes.
Right,
I'm like,
from The Simpsons.
All through that scene, that's all I kept thinking.
I just saw it somewhere else recently too. I can't remember where it was.
Oh, it's been done tons of times. But
my wife was just watching something the other day though, and they were reenacting that scene. It was on The Big Bang Theory or something like that. I mean, definitely like a huge Hollywood moment. But I don't know. For all the reasons that I just mentioned, I thought this movie was fantastic, and I liked it as much watching it now as I did when I first saw it, like 30 years ago or whatever it was, 40 years ago. And I don't know. You didn't like it. You thought it was dumb. It's okay. You're wrong. It's okay to be wrong. But no, I thought it was great. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And I'm glad that I picked this movie. I thought it was good. So.
Well, I'll get. I mean, hey, it's your movie. You enjoy it. That's what's important. I didn't care for it. I certainly wouldn't recommend it to anybody I know. I asked my wife if she had seen it, and she's like, not recently. I remember it was sort of long and boring. And I'm like, that's exactly what I thought. Long and boring. Not my kind of movie. But,
oh, well. You'd be wrong. Okay. On that note, let's have some
fun with Caveman.
All right, my man, it is over to you. So what would you like to do with me this
All right.
week?
So it turns out that in the 1980s, there were a lot of movies made about people going into the military, and the movie focused a lot on like basic training. In fact, I found 10, including this one, where from 1980 to 1989, the common theme was that these movies were about people joining the military, basic training, the whole bit. Some of them I've seen and I'm very familiar with. Some I never even heard of, and I had to look them up. But you always tout yourself as the 80s movies guy. So I'm gonna give you the quiz here. I'm gonna give you some clues, and the common theme is that all of these movies were made in the 80s.
Oh, they're from the 80s? Okay.
They all came out in the 80s, and they all have something to do with military and people in the military going through some sort of basic training or something of that nature. That's a common thread for all these. Some of these I know are going to be super duper easy because they're very popular movies. Some of these you may never have heard of. I know I hadn't, but yeah, let's run through the list. And I'm just going to start in 1980, and then we're going to move through the decade. I'm just going to do them in the order they came out.
Sure.
I am going to start by giving you the year and the director.
Okay.
If that doesn't give it to you, you tell me if you want the synopsis or a list of the stars. I'll give you the option. You pick one or the other, and then we'll see if you can go from there. All right. Fair. Like I said, some of these are super easy. Okay. First one, 1980, and the director is Robert Downey Sr.
Oh, I need more. I'll need a synopsis.
Okay. 4 boys are sent for different reasons to a military academy. The life of discipline asks a lot of 4 geeks. Of course, these boys know how to make a party out of the hard times. Will they be real men after 1 year?
Oh, it was Up the Academy.
Yes!
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I had never heard of this movie. I was looking at it going, oh, yeah, I'm sure Chris has seen this.
I've never seen it, but I've heard of it. Okay.
All right.
Up the Academy. Oh,
Jeez. All right. Here's another one from 1980.
Okay.
The director is Howard Zeef.
Maybe I might need a synopsis here.
Okay. A sheltered young high society woman joins.
Oh, I know. It's private. I know this. It's Private Benjamin.
It is Private Benjamin. Yeah.
Okay.
If you would ask for the stars, the first one on the list is Goldie Hawn. I'm like, well, you'll get it from that. Again, I've never seen that one either.
It's quite good. It's quite good.
I'll take your word for it. I've heard she was good in it, but yeah. All right.
They made it into a TV show for a while there, too.
I believe you're right. Okay.
With
so
the girl from Airplane. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So we had 2 from 1980. I'm going to give you 2 from 1981.
Okay.
First one, 1981, military themed, directed by Ivan Reitman.
Oh, Stripes.
Of course, Stripes. Bill Murray, John Candy, Harold Ramis, Sean Young. Yeah, and we did that one on our podcast, so I knew you would get that one.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
I know it is. Okay. Yeah. Also in 1981, not a comedy, directed by Harold Becker.
I don't recognize the director, but was around that time, would have been Taps.
Yes. Again, a movie I was not familiar with.
So
George C. Scott, Tom Cruise, Timothy Hutton, Sean Penn.
I like that movie a lot. I remember when it was on the movie channel when I was like 12. I watched that movie over and over. I liked that movie a lot. It was good.
I had the synopsis here, but what is it about?
So these recruits are in this military academy, and then I kept trying to remember the reason now. It's been so long. It gets shut down, and George C. Scott dies or something, and Timothy Hutton decides to take over, and they sort of hold the whole academy under siege. And the cops and the military come in and try and take it over, and they're like, no, they have a standoff with the outside world, and they're like, no, we're not letting anybody in here. This is our property. And then it ends bloody.
Okay.
It's quite good. So.
Not the direction I thought that was going in.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Far cry from Stripes.
Yeah, no.
All right. 1982, we have this movie, so we're going to skip that one, obviously. 1983, we have a film directed by Frank Rodham.
Frank Rodham. Oh, I don't know who that is. So
I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, I might need a bit more.
So this one says, in 1960s America, a black cadet is allowed acceptance into a seemingly prestigious military academy.
Is it a soldier story?
No, it is not.
Oh, okay.
Let me continue with the synopsis. Accepted into a seemingly prestigious military academy, unleashing a barrage of corruption within the system that another cadet is willing to expose. Starring the aforementioned David Keith.
Oh, David Keith. Oh, he did a movie called, was it The Lords of Discipline?
Yes. Also starring Michael Biehn, Barbara Bach, Judge Reinhold, Bill Paxton, and a few other people I never heard of.
Yeah.
All right. Doing well on these. Okay, we got a couple easy ones because some of these
from the 80s, so I mean.
Yeah, some of these movies are pretty well known. Stripes was a gimme. Okay, here's one from 1986 from one of my all-time favorite movie directors, R.I.P. Tony Scott. Directed by Tony Scott, 1986. Something to do with the military.
Was it Top Gun?
It was Top Gun.
Nice.
I figured that was a gimme one for you. All right. This one might be a gimme for you as well. So we went from 83 to 86. We're still in 1986.
Okay.
Directed by Clint Eastwood. Also starring Clint Eastwood.
Was it Firefox?
No, but that did come out around this time.
Yeah, it did. What else did he do around that time that had to do with the military? It was after Bronco Billy and all that stuff. What did he do?
I can give you the synopsis.
Yeah, give me the synopsis, please.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the title of the movie's on. Okay. Hard-nosed, hard-living Marine gunnery Sergeant Tom Highway, played by Clint Eastwood, clashes with his superiors and his ex-wife as he takes command of a spoiled recon platoon with a bad attitude.
Oh, man. I don't know.
It was called Heartbreak Ridge.
Oh, I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
I've never seen it either.
Yeah.
So, all right. That was 86. We moved to 87.
Okay, 87.
I don't think you've seen this, but I think you're going to get it off the director alone. Stanley Kubrick.
Oh, Full Metal Jacket.
Yes, Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah,
Matthew Modine, R.D. Emery, Vincent D'Onofrio. Yeah, we are definitely going to have to watch. You want to talk about a movie about basic training? This is a movie about basic training. Awesome film. We will be watching it at some point. When we do 1987, I may have to recommend this. Did we do 1987? I don't think we've done 87 yet.
No, not yet.
No. All right, last one on the list. 1988, directed by Mike Nichols.
Wow. Mike Nichols. What the hell did he direct in 88? It had to do with basic training. Was it Biloxi Blues? Yes.
I was going to say, I saw this in the theater because it was marketed as a comedy. And believe me, there was not a lot of laughing going on in this movie.
I saw it on the movie network once, and I remember it was quite good. I was thinking, good. Yeah, I thought, this movie was actually pretty good. I saw it like years ago when it came out on the movie network. Would have been the year after that, but that was pretty good. I didn't realize off the top of my head that Mike Nichols directed it until it just kind of came to me. So, that was good.
Nice. Yeah. For those who aren't familiar, it's got Matthew Broderick, Christopher Walken. It's really good. It's based on a Neil Simon play. It's a pretty good one. Mm-hmm. So so those are the 10 movies, including this one we just reviewed, An Officer and a Gentleman. Those are our 10 films in the 80s that all have to do with basic training, military academies, that kind of thing. It was a common theme that ran through the movies through the 80s. I mean, it's a theme that you still see in more modern movies, but there really seemed to be a desire to put this kind of thing on the screen in the 80s. So
the best one of those was obviously Stripes, one of my favorite films of all time. But I'm telling you, Derek, I wish you would reconsider. Officer and Gentleman is so good. It is so good. Oh my God. I don't realize how good it was until I went back and watched it, just this week. And I was like, oh my God, this movie is fantastic. I mean, and critics agreed, audiences agreed. It was in the top 5 films that year. It was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including, screenplay and acting awards, and it was great. Just great.
It's just not my jam, man. Yeah, I can acknowledge that. I can acknowledge that it had strong performances and good direction and good writing and all the rest of that.
You just didn't like it, yeah. I
didn't like it. It wasn't on a theme I really cared for. I didn't find the story all that intriguing to me personally. I was like, I was not into it whatsoever. So, no.
Oh, it was just so good. Okay, so it's over to you now. You have to pick a movie from 1982 for us to do on our next episode. So what have you got for us?
Yeah, so I'm going to pick a movie that is 10 times better than this one.
That's going to be tough, but go for it.
No, I mean, I think that's being conservative. We're going to do the Steven Spielberg classic, E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
Oh, that's a great one. I didn't expect you to go there. So
I wasn't going to. I had something else in mind that was a little more off the wall, and I was like, you know what? I haven't seen E.T. in probably 10 years or more.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
When you recap the list of our picks earlier, and you obviously E.T. was your number one pick, and rightly so. I mean, it was the best movie of the year, the highest grossing movie of the year. I just thought, you know what? If we haven't done E.T., we're going to have to do it. So I double-checked it during the show. I'm like, no, we have not done E.T., and you and Yancey didn't do E.T. I'm like, we're doing E.T.
No, yeah, we've never done it, so that's a great pick. Did you see E.T. in the theater when it came out?
I saw E.T. in the theater at least 6 or 7 times.
Wow. I saw it 3 times in the theater.
Yeah. When we were younger, before VHS video cassette recorders, video cassette players in your home was a thing, when a movie came to the theater and left the theater, that was it. You never saw the movie again.
For years and years.
From time to time, really big, really popular movies would be re-released in theaters. And E.T. was one of those ones where it was re-released in the theater I believe more than once, because I know I definitely went to see it during the original run a couple of times. I mean, I was only 7 or 8 years old, so my parents brought me a couple of times. But I can remember it being re-released either later that year or possibly the next year. And then when I lived in Nova Scotia in 1985, I remember it was again re-released for a short time in the theater as well. And I can remember every time, it was my all-time favorite movie next to Star Wars growing up. And every time it came back to the theater, I'm like, yep, Mom, Dad, we're going to see E.T. And they're like, yeah, okay, that's fine.
It was phenomenal. It was something else. It was a spectacle. And like I say, it started as a small movie and it just kind of grew.
Yep.
It just grew and grew and grew and grew. And it was fantastic. I think it's a great pick. Okay, so next week we're going to come back and we're going to watch E.T., the Extraterrestrial. It's going to be awesome. So that was a good pick, Derek. So until then, this is Chris McBrien on behalf of myself and Derek Myers and our producer Slaw saying thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World. You can contact Chris and Derek at popgoesyourworld.com. Please take a minute and review the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.